Hi everyone, and welcome to this special edition episode of Keipert Labs here in my very own kitchen. Going to do a little bit of edition of Keipert's kitchen tonight. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you, or at least attempt to show you, how to make mozzarella cheese. So as many of you would know, that cooking is one of a passion of mine, that I love to talk about cooking, I love to talk about food, I love to cook food, I love to eat food, and I also love to bring a little bit of science into how I make food. So whether it's cooking a meal, or whether it's baking, or whether it's doing something a little bit more unusual like making cheese. And so I've had a bit of a go at trying to make mozzarella cheese before without much success, and I've had try to approach these things very scientifically. Try to think about what aspects of the recipe work and what don't. You know, what things might need to be tweaked, what variables need to be adjusted. Is it the technique? Is it the ingredients? Is it the process itself? Is it the equipment? Is it some other kind of random thing that's kind of thrown in the mix that can change things? And so, you know, after a couple of failed attempts, I'm hoping to have a more successful one here tonight and to take you with me as we do this process. So I've got my saucepan here, so on the stove, here in the Keipert Lab studio, also known as my house. And then we've got a number of different ingredients. I'm going to try and do in the style of, you know, some of the BuzzFeed videos, try to show you a little bit more how it actually works here on the stove. And I'll do my best. I've got a little camera kind of set up to try and show you some things, and so to walk you through the process a little bit. So a bit of a how-to with fingers crossed, as well as probably toes as well. Okay, so one of the first things that we need to start with is we need to start with some milk. Okay, so it's got to be non-homogenized milk. So the idea is that the milk that we use, or the milk that we drink, contains a lot of different parts. It's a really complex mixture. It's got water, it's got sugars like lactose, it's got proteins, and it's also got fats. And so, you know, it's a natural kind of part of what comes from the cow. But the thing is that in natural kind of form, the fat kind of globules, or the fat kind of particles in the milk, change in size, or they come in lots of different sizes, really tiny to really big. And then what that means is that sometimes then the fat of the milk, when it's, you know, out of the cow and kind of raw and unprocessed, tends to float to the top. Now, what they do is we say they homogenize it, that they break up these fat particles to be the same size through kind of normal milk that you might drink or have in your house. And that's really, you know, that's good for a consistent kind of product, that it's all the way dispersed through all the milk, but that's not very helpful for cheese making, because this process that it goes through to make this happen stops the process that we need to make something like mozzarella cheese. So we get non-homogenized milk. So like you can, like I'm trying my best to kind of show you here, but yeah, so it hasn't gone through this process, so hopefully that will make it a bit better. We've also got some pure cream to add a little bit of extra fat and which helps the process along. In terms of some other ingredients that we have, two kind of things that make the whole process work. We've got citric acid, and we've also got these things called junket tablets. Now, when I was growing up, we used to have these mixed into milk to make a dessert. Basically, it's got an enzyme in it, which is what does it is important for the process of making the cheese. It helps to cause some of the proteins in the milk to kind of stick together to make what we call curds, and leaving behind the rest of the liquid, which we call the whey. All right, so what we have to do is that I'm going to tip this whole thing of milk into the saucepan. Okay, so we're going to go through the whole lot. It's quite a lot of milk when you think of it. I mean, it's 2 litres, but we're using the whole lot in one go. There's no half measures here. Okay, and then I'm going to give the container of cream a bit of a shake. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to tip that into the saucepan as well. Okay, so we've got a big mixture of milk and cream, lots of nice fat and protein. Got a whisk, which is what we're going to use. I'm going to see if I can turn this a little bit so that I can kind of stay on camera a bit better. And I'm just going to give this a bit of a whisk what that will help to do is to help to disperse the globules of fat a little bit more evenly through the milk. So it's kind of doing a little bit of what that industrial process does, but this way it you know, kind of works a bit more with what we need. All right, so get that out of the way. Out of the way. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is that this process needs to happen in an acidic environment. So the cheese making is not really going to work if the milk is just neutral. So this is where our citric acid kicks in. So I'm going to add some citric acid into our mix. Okay, so we've got some citric acid. So it's half a teaspoon. We've got to do, for the ratio of the amount of milk that I need, I've got to use 3/4 of a teaspoon. So it's kind of a bit fiddly. Okay, I'm going to sprinkle that over and give that a bit of a mix through to evenly disperse it. There we go. Okay, the next main component that we need is the junket tablet. So it's got an enzyme I mentioned that's called rennet, which is the specific thing that helps. It basically, and it exists in your stomach and in the stomach of other animals, it basically helps milk to form curds or to clot, which is part of what you know is necessary in terms of digestion. Okay, and so I'm going to put it into, I've got a bowl of some cold water. I'm going to dissolve it. Okay, so we have that now. It's reasonably kind of dispersed or kind of mixed through in this water. Okay, so 1 junket tablet to about 1/4 cup of just tap water. Okay, so we want that, so the junket, when it is going to kind of do its thing, it works very quickly, and so we want to make sure that that's pretty much ready to go and it's nicely and evenly dissolved, so that when we do the next bit, that it's not going to we're not going to get uneven curds forming. Okay, so I've got my milk and cream mixed together combined with some citric acid to help to start to make it a bit more acidic. I've got my junket dissolved. Now what we need to do is I need to warm up the milk. So I need to get it to around about around about 31 degrees Celsius is kind of what I need. And I'm going to heat it on the stove. It's going to take a little while to do that, so stay with me. Okay, so you can see, you could see until a moment ago on the thermometer that we've reached the temperature that we're hoping for, so around about 31 degrees Celsius. And what's going to happen is that now I'm going to add in my junket, my rennet, and I'm going to give it a good stir. Okay, and I'm going to keep heating it. I'm going to back the heat off a bit. So I'm going to make sure that it's really well mixed through so that it has the chance to make contact with all of that milk. And then I'm going to keep using my thermometer to keep monitoring it until we get to 41 degrees Celsius, give or take. Okay, so my heating is not quite so strong now, but I'm still keeping a close eye on things so that I can check and see when the conditions are right. So the idea through this whole process, as we can see that the temperature is climbing, is that we need to encourage these curds to form at just the right sort of temperature. And so by adding the rennet, we start to get those curds or those clumps kind of forming. And then by heating it just that little bit further, we help to encourage the curd formation, and then we're going to turn the heat off. And the idea is that then we're going to leave it, we're going to let it sit for a little while to get those curds to form. Okay, and then we'll walk you through the next few steps of the process as we get to that step. Just giving a gentle little stir with a thermometer. I'm trying to keep it on camera so you can see when we get to that right sort of stage, and we can tell that we're very close now. Okay, so we just kind of hit 41. So I'm going to turn the heat off now. Basically, I'm going to let it stand for about 5 minutes to 10 minutes just to help encourage those curds to form. Okay. Okay, so I've just been observing my curds, or observing the kind of the mixture as it's been going, and seeing that it hasn't really started curdling. It hasn't really; those curds haven't really been forming. So what I've done is I prepared another sample of junket tablet. I'm going to mix this in now that it's still warm and it's kind of back on the hot plate a bit, and see if that can help improve the process. So what we're seeing here now is I've added that second junket tablet. It's back on the hot plate, which is off, but it's just still got a little bit of that warmth at the moment. Those curds are really starting to form now. I'm going to keep it filming so that you can see the change that happens over the next few minutes as it starts to really kind of take hold. Okay, so you can see now as we're looking at it, still going to let it sit for a little bit longer, but so you can see that there's actually kind of, the surface is responding when I'm kind of touching it with it. It's not like dipping your finger into milk anymore, that it's actually kind of, well, it's not firm, but it's certainly, there's a resistance there because of those curds that are forming, and then what happens is that they float to the top, and so they're actually kind of resting, and then you've got this, the liquid sitting underneath, and we're going to separate these from one another in a moment. But the idea is that that's why you're kind of seeing those changes there. So we're going to leave it sit for another probably 5 minutes, and you can we'll come back in a few minutes to walk you through it. Okay, so we've left it for about another 5 minutes just sitting here on the stove, and we've got a lot of significant kind of curd formation. It's really, I mean, it's a bit hard to convey in a video, but the surface is really quite bouncy. There's quite a lot of resistance there from those curds that have formed. Okay, so now that the next job for us is to strain them out. So I've got a strainer kind of set into a bowl. So that I'm going to then scoop them across into here using a slotted spoon. Okay, so what I have is, you can see that it's quite solid. I mean, like, it's not like a rock, but the idea is that it's not, it actually kind of sticks to itself quite a bit. You can see kind of at the edges there. That's what we want. That's really good. That means that we're going to start to get some curds that hopefully, fingers and toes all crossed, that is going to start to be able to be stretched to make the mozzarella that we know and love. And it means that I can also tilt it to the side a little bit to help some of that whey drain off, because it actually kind of sticks to itself more than it has the tendency to do that, to kind of come apart. But so what we're going to do is I'm just going to now leave this to drain for a little while longer, just until it stops kind of dripping.